believe it or not everyone solves their problems with their fists.
2 girls?
2.
You want to tag along for an exorcism?
Yep.
That's out of the bloody question, love.
Well, we gave you its name, so you owe us.
Well, I gave you your soul, so you owe me indefinitely.
All the more reason for me to help you.
How is Fitz even here?
I don't know. He just showed up out of nowhere with his own spaceship.
It's a baller move. Not to mention the whole bounty hunter look he's rocking.
I still prefer my cardigans.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Fandom Zone podcast. I'm Charles Skaggs, and with me here in the Fandom Zone is sadly not Karen this week. Yeah, because if you follow Karen on her Facebook feed, you know that sadly Karen's mother passed away, and she's understandably not taking it well. It's very hard, especially someone that she was so close to, her mother. So, Karen, before we get into our normal silliness, I want to take a moment and just let you know that I'm thinking about you, and thankfully one of your closest friends, Jesse Jackson, is here, also thinking about you, and was kind enough to help fill in while you're away.
Absolutely. Podcast Mom, you know we love you. You know we're thinking of you. And and it's always fun to step in and hang out in the Fandom Zone. So I've got my purple projector ready to
Nice.
Talk a little TV.
Excellent. So thank you again, Jesse, for helping us out. I'm sure Karen appreciates it because I know this podcast means a lot to her, and it's and she obviously trusts you to take over in her absence. So yes, Karen, we're obviously thinking about you, and I hope everybody else is as well. We're keeping you definitely in our thoughts and prayers, and we love you so much. So with that, now on with the nonsense. There's no good way to segue out of this, so we're just going to dive right in. So here we are at episode 132 for the week ending March 17th, 2018, St. Patrick's Day. And Jesse was kind enough to agree to talk about some episodes, 4 episodes we're going to cover this week. We've kind of, Jesse, you may not be aware of this, but Karen and I have realized that our format is horrible. And we cannot keep up with so many shows. So we have recently decided to kind of hit the highlights of the week instead. Okay. So last week we did 4 episodes or 4 shows, and this week we're going to do 4 shows, 2 of which are new, different from last week, which is great. To kind of change things up a little. So with that in mind, what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about Legends of Tomorrow, episode 14 of the 3rd season. We're going to talk about iZombie, the 3rd episode of the 4th season. And The Flash, episode 16 of the 4th season. And lastly, Black Lightning, episode 8 of the 1st season. And hopefully not the last, because I'm digging the show. And I hope you are, Jesse. So
yeah, it really is. It doesn't feel like it's already been 8 episodes.
They just breezed right by, didn't they?
They do, yeah. Really great stuff. I'm looking forward to talking about all 4 of them. Yeah. But especially Black Lightning.
Yeah, because Black Lightning, this was a big one because we have not 1 but 2 Pierce daughters with superpowers. And definitely looking forward to talking about that. So, all right. So, first show we're going to talk about, Legends of Tomorrow, episode 14 of the 3rd season, Amazing Grace. How sweet. The talkback, I guess. All right. So, this is written by Matthew Mala and Tyrone B. Carter, directed by David Geddes. And just to kind of a very quick overview, The premise of this episode is that the legends end up going back to 1950s Memphis, Tennessee, where they encounter a very familiar young man with jet black hair and a guitar, and that man turns out to be none other than Elvis. Thank you very much.
I'm all shook up talking about this episode.
Oh, you were waiting to use that.
Yes, I was. I have been waiting since yesterday when we talked about this. Yeah.
You better be careful or they're going to put you in a little jailhouse rock.
Exactly.
All right. So, obviously the Elvis puns are going to fly fast and furious, hopefully. When you first were introduced to this episode, were you geeked that the legends were going to meet Elvis?
I was. I'm a little. I kind of am curious how much they played with the
history.
Yeah, because I kept waiting for him to do "That's All Right, Mama."
Yeah.
And they didn't, and I don't know if it's because they couldn't get the rights.
I don't know. I don't know what that was either. I thought it was interesting because we have an Elvis episode, but no Elvis songs in it.
Yeah, and so
he covered "Amazing Grace," and
yeah.
So it's fine, and Elvis has a very notable version of "Amazing Grace."
Yeah.
Go ahead.
But it was just it's. I'm fascinated by son Elvis and the early Elvis, and so I was really excited about that. I was excited about the idea of how much rock and roll influences, has influenced society, and this not going on, I think is really interesting.
Yeah. Well, you might be able to help out here because obviously with your musical podcast, Set Lusty and Bruce. Free plug there. The Bruce Springsteen podcast. You obviously have talked to a lot of musicians and are music fans over the years, and so I'm guessing you have at least some familiarity with Elvis.
Absolutely, and I just love the whole idea that Quantum Leap used to call them kisses with history.
Yeah.
Where they would have a little bit of person.
I like that.
Yeah, and of course this show embraces everything they're doing. So I love the whole idea that Nate wants to show, Amaya. Yeah, that, because she's from the past.
Right.
Let's go get this whole, let's see what rock and roll is.
Right.
And so I think it was great.
Yeah, because she's obviously, depending on, I believe she came out of around 1940. So she's about maybe 13 to 15 years before her time here.
Yes.
And so Nate is obviously, he's a history buff, and we found out he's a big Elvis fan. So it was very important for him to show Amaya, how cool Elvis was, and why initially it's kind of a letdown because his first outing at a club, he has an out of tune guitar, and Amaya's just looking at him going, "I don't get it."
Yeah, exactly.
Which is a little awkward.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but you mentioned that you were kind of wondering about how historically accurate some of this is.
Yeah.
So I made some notes because I'm a little bit of an Elvis geek, not a big one, but enough to I know a couple things. So I kind of researched this a little bit just to make sure I had my facts straight. So when they were talking about Elvis's twin brother, Jesse. No relation, I'm sure.
No.
And so Jesse, we see Jesse as a ghost in this episode, in his adult form. Now,
Right.
For those who don't know, and I'm sure a lot of people don't know this, Elvis did have a twin brother named Jesse. But Jesse was stillborn.
Yes.
And on January 8th, 1935, Elvis's birthday. They were twins, obviously, but only Elvis survived.
Yeah, and
so that was really weird that he had this big attachment to a brother he never met.
And one of the things legend, see what I did there?
Yeah, I see what you did there.
Elvis legend lore is that he always did feel a connection to his twin brother.
Right.
And there's a great Twilight Zone episode where the Elvis, I'd have to look it up. It's like Return of the King or something, where an Elvis impersonator goes back in time. Ooh. And Elvis thinks he's his twin brother Jesse. And spoilers, the Elvis impersonator ended up killing Elvis.
And replacing him?
And he had to do and so he did everything even though he knew how it was going to end.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a beautiful episode.
Just because he wanted to live his life.
Yeah, just
his brother's life, yeah.
Yeah, because he felt like he had to do this. So it's really good.
That's a good premise. I haven't heard that episode.
Yeah.
Was that in the more modern Twilight Zone?
Yes, it was.
Okay, that makes sense.
So I'll look it up while we're talking. But this was once again a great episode, and so much. This show has done such a great job of knowing what it is.
Right.
It has just enough humor in it. That it is wonderful. I love that Mick has become, Jane.
Yes.
On this ship.
Yeah, if you're a Firefly fan, yeah, he's essentially like the Jane Cobb of Legends of Tomorrow.
And it's just, I guess we'll talk at the end. Maybe there's rumors that a certain character may be coming back if they get another season.
Well, I don't think it's rumors. It is actually confirmed by multiple entertainment news sources. So.
Yeah, which is just delicious.
Yeah, it is.
So delicious.
And actually that character is actually airing in the Legends of Tomorrow episode airing right now that I'm missing.
I know.
But thankfully you were kind enough. I'm okay with that because you were kind enough to share your schedule to help us out.
I hear you.
All right. So, and thank God for DVRs. That's all I'm saying right now.
Exactly.
All right. Some other little Elvis tidbits about this episode. So Elvis, when he went to go make his first recording at the Sun Record Company, apparently he went to, this was on January 18th, 1953. Elvis goes to the Memphis recording studio at Sun Record Company, now commonly known as Sun Studio, and he paid $3.98 to record the first of 2 double-side demo acetates, which shows you how old it is on acetate. He did the songs My Happiness and That's When Your Heartaches Begin, neither of which are in this episode either.
No, not at all.
I thought you would think they could at least get the rights to those, right?
Yeah, and it truly must be a money thing. And so I that was when we get to ratings, that will hurt their rating.
Mm-hmm. I understand. So let's see what else. I think that's all the really Elvis tidbitty thing. Oh, one other thing. They make a mention of this in this episode of Elvis's uncle. I forget what his uncle's Uncle Lucius. Guess what?
Yeah.
Guess what, kids? Elvis never had an Uncle Lucius.
Right.
A little creative license there, to the point where they were adding to the Elvis Presley family, for the sake of the story. So,
absolutely, and of course we don't know.
Yeah.
In this version of Earth.
Yeah.
Maybe Elvis.
That's true. Maybe in the Earth 1 Elvis, he had an uncle, Uncle Lucius.
Right.
So I guess
Yes.
that's how we could get around that. Yeah, that's good. It's not the Earth Prime Elvis.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, I loved all the Elvis. I loved the times
Yep.
stories, but
Yeah.
how much is Wally West just precious in this episode?
Yeah, I was a little concerned how well Wally would fit in, moving over from the
Yeah.
Flash. But with his super speed and this kind of Zen attitude that he has now, I kind of dig it. And he seems like he's really quickly working his way into the team. Like they show this great scene where right off the bat where like he's playing video games with Zari, who was kind of like the outsider of the group until her big spotlight episode where she had this kind of Groundhog Day over and over.
Amazing episode, just wonderful.
Right, so then that kind of ingratiated her to the team. But Wally seems to be, and this is probably no side effect of his super speed, he seems to be clicking with the team faster than she did.
Yeah, and I love, first off, I love that Ray Palmer has been just the ultimate Boy Scout, considering, he played Superman, and everyone says, Soups is the big Boy Scout, but
not like Ray Palmer.
No, Roy's chore wheel, which uses a complex system I pretend not to understand until he eventually does my chores for me. And, and then just Wally. What else do you need?
Even the late Mr. Rogers thinks Ray Palmer is too white bread.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So this is truly a highlight of me every week, and it's fun.
Is it your favorite DC show on the CW right now?
I think Black Lightning would have that.
Okay, that's fair.
That's
fair.
But it's a close second.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
I think that's fair.
How about you? Now, I know the Flash always has your heart.
Yeah.
But
I mean, obviously, I'm a big time travel geek. So especially when you have Rip Hunter and all that, and I just dig Legends anyway. And obviously, adding a certain John Constantine isn't going to hurt either.
Yeah.
Which we'll talk about here in a minute. But so it's going to be close because the Flash has been kind of hit or miss. When it hits, like this recent episode that we talked about last week where they had Flash time. Mm-hmm. I thought that was a really good episode.
Yes.
It seems like when they're not focusing on the Thinker storyline, they have better episodes.
Right.
So maybe it would behoove them to kind of wrap that one up quick, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But Black Lightning is very strong, and I think it's probably the best quality show of the CW shows.
I don't remember
because it's the most real, in my opinion.
Someone said, CW shows are One Atom 12,
right,
and Black Lightning is Hill Street Blues. I don't remember who wrote that, either Peter David or someone. But that
sounds like something Peter David might say.
Yes.
Yeah,
so.
it's Black Lightning is that kind of next level. I'd say it's like the closest the CW shows get to the Marvel Netflix shows, and maybe sometimes a little better than the Marvel Netflix shows, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So, depending on the show. So I'm digging that. But as far as Legends, this episode was pretty fun. Obviously, it's Legends is kind of settled into a nice little groove where it's the fun CW show. The fun that, just like anything can happen. All kinds of characters can pop out of nowhere. All kind of historical figures, like in this case, Elvis. And, they've had done like George Lucas and, so just, J.R. Tolkien. So the show gets a little crazy, and I kind of dig that about this show a lot.
I do too. And, you and I both, plug.
Yeah.
As we talk time travel on our other show,
right.
This is just so wonderful.
Why, you wouldn't mean Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast.
I think I would.
I hear everybody's talking about that show, and they think it's the Ginchiest.
Yes, indeed.
All
right. So
let's see. So,
rating?
Anything else about this episode you want to talk about?
Nope. It was good, and I love it, and I'm really excited about what they're, where they're going to go. And this whole totem things has been interesting. So yeah, good stuff.
Because one of the things we got, we probably should mention is that all of this, we found out that Elvis had this death totem embedded in his guitar, and the legends end up by the end of the episode, of course, getting their hands on the death totem, which they're kind of celebratory about at the end of the episode because they got it before Damien and Nora Dark got their mitts on it. So a brief and rare win for the legends here. And I'd like to see more of that, actually. And then Ray talks about building a lockbox for this totem, but the lockbox is very tiny, and it's well, you could just walk off with a lockbox.
Yeah.
And open it later.
Sense.
And it didn't seem like much of a lockbox to me.
No.
All right. So what's your rating on this one?
I am going to give it 8.5 because of the songs.
Yeah.
Trombone Warriors.
Nice.
I wanted to go guitar, but I figured that would be a little too on point.
Okay, that's good. I'm hoping you'll catch this reference, Jesse. All right. So I give this one 8 out of 10 peanut butter, banana, and bacon sandwiches.
Absolutely.
Now, why is that significant?
That is one of Elvis's signature meals.
Exactly. That's one of his favorite. He loved his peanut butter, bacon, and banana sandwich.
Yes.
So, and they actually made a reference to this because they didn't come out and say what was in the sandwich, but Heatwave kind of was eyeing the sandwich there for a little brief bit.
Yes.
And I thought that was kind of he's kind of pulling up the bread and going, okay, I'm not quite sure what to make of this, but yeah, so I thought that was a funny little scene and very sly on the part of the writers. But
yes.
I caught that reference because I know about Elvis's favorite sandwich. All right.
Yes, indeed.
All right. So next we're going to talk about iZombie 403, Brainless in Seattle Part 1, an actual two-parter here, written by Heather V. Renier, directed by Michael Whale. And Jesse, you have been watching iZombie, but you haven't quite caught up with season 4, to my understanding.
What I tend to do is I let 2 or 3 episodes
build up,
pile up,
yeah,
and then on a weekend I'll catch up, and then I try to stay. I had 4 or 5 episodes of Lucifer.
Right.
Well, now then I'm current on Lucifer.
So you do kind of like a mini binge watch.
Yes, and then stay up. iZombie is one of my favorite shows, and that partly why I'm not watching. Because I'm doing that whole, I'm saving the good stuff.
Yeah.
This could be, and I liked the Elijah Dukush, where she, went back a day and took over, the body or, lived the life of someone who died. I'm drawing that.
Dollhouse?
No, not Dollhouse, but similar.
Dark Angel? No.
Yeah. So I'll look it up.
I can't remember what that was either. I might not have seen that one.
Yeah. It only lasted 2
seasons.
2 seasons on Fox, but
which is pretty standard for Fox Sci-Fi.
Yeah.
Generally, as a general rule.
She was. Oh wow! I'll look for it.
That's okay.
Anyway, True Calling.
Oh, True Calling. Okay.
Yeah, and so, and it's another zombie show, so there is no reason why this should be good, except the greatness of Rob Thomas.
Yes. From
Veronica Mars.
And I remember you being a big Veronica Mars fan.
Yes, and Cupid. And so, and they have found their voice, and where they, Rose McIver
Right.
really embraces playing the different characters, because of the brains. I love one of the things they do is showing how she doesn't just eat raw brains, right?
Right.
She
has a recipe of the week for these brains.
Yes.
And this week is no exception, because in this week's episode, it's essentially she gets on like a romantic comedy brain.
Okay.
And she ends up making chocolate brain candies. Like little hearts, but with brains in them. So that's her recipe this week.
And
sometimes they do really clever things. Like they come up with like brain sushi, or these really, like, if you're a foodie, a food aficionado, some of these look actually very appetizing. It's just that you have to kind of like, well, okay, they're not really brains. So
right.
You might be inclined to eat them knowing that, well, it's just brains on the show. But they look really actually pretty good and pretty appetizing sometimes.
Absolutely.
Yep. So
anyway, I'm not caught up, but I love the series. So talk to me.
All right. I'll try and keep this pretty quick, because since you haven't watched the episode, apologies for the spoilers on this one.
That's okay.
If you want to silence me for a little bit, you can do that. I'll just kind of nod or something if you want. But this is Brainless in Seattle Part 1 of 2. And Jesse, now you're familiar with it, how things have been kind of escalating as far as the zombies going, that the zombie population has steadily grown over the first 3 seasons, and the secret got out that there were zombies. And so this season has kind of taken things to an even raised the bar a little more by establishing this like entire walled off zombie community section of Seattle. It's kind of like a city within a city.
Yeah, Jason Doring was there last year, and they had the whole secret society, and then when they came out,
right,
and I was excited to see what they were going to do, because, leave us alone and we'll leave you alone. And so this is
they've kind of just taken it to the natural progression where we kind of see life in this like zombie city now.
And what I like is this show is just campy enough that you have fun with it. Unlike I personally thought Gotham, I gave up on Gotham because I don't think they knew what they wanted to be.
Right.
And they were just a little too crazy. I know a lot of people love Gotham, and that's great.
Right.
Just for me. But this just seems to just enough. I think there is just the campiness and the funniness. And what a great cast! Everyone.
Oh
back
yeah,
and forth.
It's definitely a great ensemble.
Yeah,
and they play off each other so well.
Yes,
and it's a very fun show. It's not a show that there may be some like darker moments, but they don't dwell on them overly long. And
I totally agree.
And just it's a more upbeat considering. Well, hey, it's a zombie show.
Yeah,
and it's almost like a zombie dramedy, if you will.
Yeah, and it is.
And it's obviously, and it doesn't try to like copy from The Walking Dead at all. It's its own thing. So,
Ken Schaefer, friend of the show.
Hi, Ken. If you're listening.
Yes. Take a drink.
Yep.
Zombies is his favorite genre.
Yeah.
And he talked about that, the diversity of them doing this. That, iZombie is as different of Walking Dead, of Z Nation.
Right.
To each of these just have found their own way. It's not just another zombie show. And so, and I just I'm a big fan of this.
Yeah. Yeah. If anything, I would compare this more to like Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yes,
than
I definitely think.
Than I would The Walking Dead, really, even though they're both zombie shows.
Right. I agree.
Yeah. So in this episode, we have we start off with a guy trying to drive a young woman into Seattle, trying to sneak her inside the gated walls, and there's a checkpoint, and they pay off like one of the officers from Fillmore Grays, which is essentially the security of this little zombie community, and they get her inside. And meanwhile, you have Ravi and Liv walking down the street. They're like complaining about how Blaine's handling the human zombie problem in Seattle. And Clive walks them through this murder scene, and that young woman from earlier is found shot in the head with most of her brains missing.
Mm.
So the case of the week is Ravi performs an autopsy. The murder victim is Annie Wallace, a young woman who was smuggled to Seattle for some unknown reason. They find that Annie was frequently talking to a man named Alan Fox. And so, of course, Clive asks Liv to eat Annie's brains. And she cooks them into chocolate candies, like I talked about. So they go in and interrogate this Alan Fox guy who Liv, now that she's on a romantic comedy brain, she just starts staring at this guy longingly. And Alan reveals that he and Annie met online a month before, bonded over their love of romantic comedies. And Liv is just completely enthralled. But Clive is, of course, suspicious. And Liv ends up asking Alan out to this human zombie night at the Scratching Post. So you're caught up to where the Scratching Post was created, right?
Absolutely.
The club that Blaine and Don E run.
Right.
Yeah, which I think is pretty fun. A pretty fun setting for episodes. So essentially, yeah, there's this human zombie night. Liv arranges a date to meet this guy, and she ends up trying to bring in Peyton as her girlfriend to go shotgun with her on this date. And Peyton doesn't want to do it. So she's like complaining to Ravi about the human zombie night. She begs Ravi to come along with her so that she's not just alone with Liv and this guy. And if you remember the history between Peyton and Ravi, there's a little estrangement because, well, Peyton dumped Ravi.
Yes.
And Ravi was understandably a little bitter about it. Still has feelings for her, but I think they're kind of clouded at the moment because of the way he was dumped.
Yeah, I'm pulling for these two kids.
Yeah, so
just telling you, I ship them.
Right, so they end up all three of them go to this human zombie night. Ravi just really gets into it, is dancing with everybody at the club. And Peyton's just like, I think you should kind of hang with me. And he's like, no. And he's got all these women hanging around him and everything. It's pretty funny. But then the guy, Alan, ends up standing Liv up. And so Liv is understandably a little bummed. So in a kind of romantic comedy kind of thing, the best friend drags the Liv out on the dance floor. That old trope. And,
yes.
So they have a pretty good time. And then Liv ends up grabbing some dude that she met on the dance floor and starts making out with him and ends up going back and having sex with him. So that kind of like, oh, I can't believe I slept with this guy trope of romantic comedies. So they're running down the whole checklist, of course. Apparently Clive later finds out that Alan had a history of having guns, and I guess Liv sees a new female police officer named Michelle, tries to set Clive up on a date with this officer, which goes really awkwardly, horribly wrong. And let's see what else. Liv gets a vision of this coyote that was in this van, or this guy that apparently talking to Annie, the victim, and Liv ends up like talking to the police sketch artist, and the sketch artist sketches the photo, but the photo turns out to be, oh hey, the guy that Liv slept with. So that gets a little awkward, understandably. And then apparently they find out this other guy that they thought was the killer was part of a group that smuggles people in to kill them and then drains their bank accounts. And then we have I guess Clive ends up finding out that Alan's guns, that they think that they thought he was those guns were used to kill Annie, weren't a match after all, which means that the other guy, Bruce, was probably the culprit. And so Clive and Liv go to a nearby building, and they find that off of getting a lead off the case, and they find a bunch of skulls. And then Clive announces to Liv that Bruce is officially a serial killer. And that's our cliffhanger. Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
Or, like they'll do the...
So it sounds like the show hasn't lost its fastball.
No. It actually hasn't. It's basically picked up where the end of the third season did not drop a beat. It just kind of took it to the next progression, the next phase of the storyline, and things kind of keep escalating in this. And I'm kind of serious, wondering how this whole House of Cards is going to come tumbling down.
Yeah, I think I'm looking forward to it. Even more as you kind of share how things are going.
Yeah.
So
apologies for the spoilers, but yeah. So a fun episode. Kind of curious to see how. I guess Liv is going to have romantic comedy brain in the second part as well. So it's kind of interesting that we're going to have Liv on the same brain for 2 episodes.
Oh, that is kind of fun.
Yeah, so it's a little different. We'll see how that goes. And we'll see how this turns out. But in the meantime, I gave this episode 8.5 out of 10 chocolate brain candies for obvious reasons.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you.
All right. So let's talk into a show that Jesse has been watching. The Flash, episode 16 of the 4th season, Run, Iris, Run.
Now, you have said when we have talked off mic that you're not a fan of the trial of Barry Allen.
Yes. It's just the comic book storyline drug on way too long for 2 years because they were trying to get the character to Crisis on Infinite Earths where they were going to kill him off. That was more of a corporate mandate. The TV show, they basically dragged on this trial for 4 episodes, putting Barry in jail and not being the Flash and so that was a little frustrating. And thankfully he's no longer in jail and he's out fighting crime again, but there are some repercussions following his experience. Barry has kind of now become estranged from the Central City Police Department, was put on extended leave without pay, presumably. And not sure how he's going to get his job back, but presumably at some point he will, hopefully. And we'll see where that goes. But this Thinker storyline, now what is your take on the Thinker storyline? I think it's gone on way too long, personally.
Yeah, I first off, I'm very glad they don't have a speedster as the villain this season. So
right.
I'm glad about that.
That was a plus, yes.
And I don't understand his motivation.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand this.
Well, I think he has a plan, and we've
Right,
kind of
but
gotten
we don't
little
know the plan.
tidbits.
But
But
you
is it-
know, so did the Cylons, according to Battlestar Galactica. And
Yeah, it's
then
like,
later,
whoops, we don't have-
said, Ron Moore goes, "Nah, we didn't have a plan. It just sounded good."
Yeah, so it's like
So-
basically like Lucy with
yeah.
Lucy with a football yanking it.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
and his wife, I guess they call the mechanic.
Yes.
You know, I think she's done a good job of kind of looking at her husband and going, "Hey, dude,
Yeah.
you keep changing bodies,
Right.
and I'm supposed to be okay with this."
And the last couple have been women, which I find
Yes.
really interesting.
Yes, because I did think when the first body he took,
Yeah.
very good-looking young
Yeah,
guy,
brainstorm.
I thought
yeah, and
yeah, she might go.
She seemed like she was pretty okay with that.
Yeah, she's like, "Yay!"
And then he dumped that for
Right.
Hazard of all people, who's like all of like 5 foot nothing, and with this kind of like Smurfette kind of voice, which doesn't sound at all intimidating.
So I don't get this. I do think it's gone on a little too long.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I'm kind of putting up with that. Now, what I like about is I love Ralph.
Right.
I think he's been a great addition. I think the actor playing him has done a wonderful job.
Yeah, Harley Sawyer has been fantastic.
Yeah. And so
He's like a modern day Jim Carrey.
yeah, and I like the whole this episode having her have the powers. I thought was interesting. You know, kind of seeing her work with it, and him, you know, Barry having this stay behind, you know, was a nice twist, and I'm glad they didn't keep it longer.
Right.
But
It's a good single episode story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I find-
and this could have been, I think, a little like it could have been pretty cheesy,
Right.
but I think they executed it well.
Yeah, I think so too, and especially, you know, Ralph saying, "Well, it's easy for you because you're always here,
Right.
you know, safe." And I also like Joe becoming a new dad. I like his, you know, girlfriend / you know, mom. Cecile. Yeah. So I like. I mean, I like all the characters. I like the interaction. I like, you know, Killer Frost. I really was unhappy. I did not want Danielle Pennebaker to become a villain.
Right.
I really like that character. I like the actress, and I think they've given us the best of both worlds.
Right.
That she is, you know. And do you remember the Rose and Thorn character way back in the 70s? Yeah. So there's a little bit of that where
This kind of schizophrenia, this multiple personality, you know, that the villain is kind of like this dark, like hidden personality, and then when like, you know, the powers activate, the other personality kicks in.
Yeah, and I like the idea that she's sitting there going,
like a Jekyll and Hyde kind of thing.
Yeah, and she's kind of, do they like her better than me?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and this, which I think is a interesting thing to do. It is a very realistic discussion. So I think everything works for this, except you're right. The villainous, it's lasted too long. They need to move on. And of course they won't, because the way this show and all CW shows work usually is you have the same villain all season. There needs to be a big bad.
Yeah. And I don't have a problem with a big bad, but I think the Flash in particular I think they need to kind of restructure their season along the lines of what Gotham and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. are doing, where they kind of break it up into, like, instead of one big season-long storyline, break it up into two, like, you know, halves of a season.
Mm-hmm.
You know, where you have like one threat the first half, another threat the second half. I think the pacing would be better. You wouldn't keep dragging out, because I mean, you have a character who moves at super speed, and yet it's been months they've been dealing with the Thinker. No resolution. So,
And-
and it just seems a little implausible. Now, granted, there was that little sidetrack with Barry getting thrown in the slammer, so I can understand a little bit of delay for that. But it's 16 episodes in. You think you think he would have been at least exposed as a bad guy by now, put to the public.
And I also, okay, we were, Ralph is able to pretend to be, the thinker, but, how long is that going to last? I mean, that just seems like a horrible plan.
Yeah. Well, I mean, from what I understand, everybody's going to keep wanting to see the thinker again, so they can, especially the CCPD, so they can question him.
Yeah.
So that could be a little awkward, especially given Ralph's personality.
Yeah.
Whether he'd be able to carry that off. So we'll see how that goes. But in this episode, we essentially had this the premise of this, like you said, we have a power swapping thing. I like this for the fact that it gives Candace Patton a really decent spotlight.
Yes.
She's not just behind the console at Star Labs radioing advice to everybody. Or, she's not just, talking with Joe, which I have no problem with, because any scene that Joe West is in is pretty
absolutely.
much gold. So I'm okay with that. But this gives her something more to do, and it kind of gave her a little character development, especially in this episode where Ralph called her out for not being in the field, which of course she knew was going to pay off later with her being out in the field to kind of get a taste of it.
Yes.
And she obviously she went through a little trial by fire, kind of literally.
Yeah.
In one scene, see what I did there?
I did.
But she came through it okay. And it was kind of interesting to see Barry's perspective, because Barry's obviously used to being the star of the show. And here he is, he's sidelined. He's the one behind the console because he has no powers, has nothing to contribute in that regard, apart from just his experience. So he's able to give advice to Iris as best as he can, even though, she's essentially a freshman with all these powers, so there's that learning curve to overcome.
Yeah.
But ultimately, with the whole sequence where the tidal wave, she has to kind of bring a controlled tidal wave tsunami in to douse the villain that's on fire and save the day, which she does. And I thought that was a really pretty cool sequence where she's running, when Iris was running on water.
And they talk about, I've never done that. Yeah, I thought it was really well done.
Yeah, I mean, as a Flash fan, I geek out anyway because, anytime you got a speedster running on water, like, Dash in The Incredibles or Barry or what have you, it's just such a cool concept to me. And I love the fact that Iris got to do it, and they had a cool shot where she's underneath the wave coming in, and it's kind of like a tunnel effect. And I thought that was really cool looking, and I dug that sequence. I thought it was really nice.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's nice. I you know what else I've loved?
Yeah,
is how they have figured out how to keep Tom Cavanaugh in the show.
Yes.
I've been a fan of him since Ed, and then, just anything he's done, I've just really enjoyed. And to have them keep figuring out how he can keep playing a character, I just love that.
Yeah. Well, last week I thought he had some good scenes with Jessie Quick, his daughter.
Yes, I thought that was really well done.
With Violet Bean. And, I just, some addressing some stuff like with his wife that, hey, yeah, we don't get to explore much. We haven't seen that. So I thought that was kind of good to get. And here, Harry, speaking of which, he decides to invent his own thinking cap. And it starts off not going so well because, hey, the cap catches on fire.
Yes, that was funny.
That was funny. So, yeah, they have to put that out, essentially. But then he gets the intelligence cap up and running, and he pushes it to the limit, but kind of like keeps going on a little bit too long, maybe. And we have that kind of cliffhanger where he rattles off these names, and it's almost just like, well, did he kind of like really screw up his brain, or is taken over somehow, maybe by the thinker, perhaps?
Yeah, I don't know. I love that Cisco was worried about him.
I think something's up there. I think they kind of teed that up for a reason, so we'll see if it pays off. I'm a little suspicious. How about you?
I am a little bit. He
seemed a little off at the end of the episode.
He did.
Yeah, didn't quite. Yeah. So yeah, I'm kind of wondering about that.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. Let's see. Anything else about this episode that stood out for you?
No, a good episode. I was really happy with it.
Mm-hmm.
And it. Who's the mysterious girl?
The mystery girl. Yeah.
Yeah. Any thoughts on that, or you always know more than I do?
Well. We kind of talked about a little bit about this last week, but I even used the Roy Orbison song "She's a Mystery Girl" that Bono wrote.
Ah, nice.
Yeah, because she's a mystery girl.
Yeah.
I love that song. So Mystery Girl, there's really two theories I think that they're going to do here. That are one, obviously she may be the daughter of Barry and Iris, Dawn Allen.
Okay.
One half of the Tornado Twins that somehow came back through time to meet her parents. Or two, and this seems to be the more likely one, given her personality, unless they kind of integrate characters somehow. Jenny Ognitz, excess from the Legion of Superheroes.
Ooh, I'd love that.
Yeah, I would too, because they have the Legion on Supergirl. So I'm kind of wondering if, maybe Excess was part of the Legion and kind of slipped away and traveled to decided to kind of take advantage of this and travel to Earth 1 to kind of check out her ancestors, maybe. So maybe at some point in the future, Excess ends up on, Earth 38? I think they called Supergirl's Earth because of Superman coming out in 1938. So maybe somehow she ended up over there. I don't know, but I just think it would be kind of cool if she ended up to be Excess. And Excess has this kind of like hyperactive bunny personality. And there was a scene in one of the teases they've done for Mystery Girl where, if you notice, she's kind of like writing in that kind of Speed Force language.
Mm-hmm.
Remember Barry was doing the symbols at the beginning of the season after he left the Speed Force, and he was having his own Phil Coulson moment, drawing all these strange symbols. Well, yeah, Mystery Girl was drawing those in a notebook, if you noticed.
Yeah, good point.
So is it kind of like, is it just Speed Force symbols, or are they maybe some future version of Interlac?
Could be.
So we'll see. So I don't know.
Okay.
So just a couple of theories I'm thinking about. Any theories that you have about her?
No idea. Yeah, I'm.
But I'm personally rooting for Excess because I just want to see Excess.
I agree.
Yep. All right. But either way would be cool. All right. So do you have a rating for this episode?
This was, I liked it a lot. I'm going to give it 8.5 borrowed Jesse Quick masks.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. Yeah, because they kind of recycled that, just maybe spray painted a little differently.
Yes, exactly.
Or maybe just Cisco has that fabrication machine or that 3D printer or whatever, and he just used the same template.
Yes.
Yeah. Now I kind of wonder about that costume because if you notice, they kind of recycled Jesse Quick's costume. It used to be it belonged to another character they had for like Trajectory that was in all of one episode before she got killed off. So Jesse Quick kind of inherited her costume. And they stuck a Flash emblem on it.
Yes, absolutely.
So I'm kind of wondering if that. Now that Iris doesn't have her super speed, if that purple and white costume is going to end up with Mystery Girl.
Could be. All right.
We'll see. So,
yes.
I don't
how
think
about you?
I don't think we've seen the last of that costume. I give it 8 out of 10 flaming intelligence caps.
Nice.
Or I should say like intelligence caps flambe.
Yeah. All right. And so our last show,
Black Lightning. The 8th episode of the first season, The Book of Revelations. Written by Jan Nash, directed by Tanya Hamilton. And Jesse, first, before we get into this particular episode, I want to know your thoughts on Black Lightning. You seem to be really digging it.
I am so... First off, I'm a huge Cress Williams fan.
Mm-hmm.
He was in Friday Night Lights.
Oh, is that where he's from? Okay.
Yeah, he played a very bad father. And then he was hilarious in Heart of Dixie.
Okay.
He played the mayor of this small town. So he can play comedy, he can play drama.
So you were pretty pumped when you first heard that he was cast as Black Lightning.
Absolutely. Inspector Henderson, Damon Gumpton was absolutely wonderful in Treme, the HBO series set in New Orleans.
Okay.
And then James Remar, who plays Gamby, a history of playing villains.
Right.
And to see him playing kind of their version of Q, even though this episode kind of added some layers to him, there's just wonderful. And then
he's almost like Black Lightning's Alfred.
Yes, he is. And I mean, this is...
I think it's a great ensemble cast here,
It is a great, and, I love his ex-wife, the 2 daughters. They are just, and I mean this in a nice way, bratty enough that they're teenagers pushing their limits.
Right.
But at the same time,
especially
not horrible.
Jennifer. Like, Anissa is the more responsible one.
Yes.
And Jennifer's the kind of troublemaking, younger daughter.
Yeah.
So
it's been great.
Yeah. And you're enjoying Marvin Crondon Jones III as Tobias Whale, the big bad.
Yes. He is really doing a good job. And
I think it's just amazing you had like a black albino villain and you found a black albino actor to play that villain perfectly.
And he's good at it.
And he's good at it, exactly.
Yeah,
How great is that?
Because you're like, okay, there's not going to be a lot of albino African Americans flying for this.
Yep.
And he ended up being really good.
Yeah, he's like perfectly cast in that.
Yeah.
They must, as soon as that, I mentioned this, I think before, that as soon as that guy walked in the door, that the casting director had to be going, yes.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I thought that was great. All right,
and
go ahead.
I love the mythos that they're working on.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that's kind of nice. It could have been a very procedural, and there was a lot of discussion about people that, this is a CW show, so very quickly they're going to move where the daughters are going to get powers, and then he will be in backstage, kind of take a back seat.
Right.
But it hadn't been at all. They've really worked on this kind of mythos and what's going on. So I've been very, very pleased.
Well, one of the things I was looking forward to when they first announced that Anissa and Jennifer would be getting their powers was this kind of generational thing. Because obviously you have Black Lightning, because of the actor, he's an older actor, so like in his 40s. So you have him with his daughter characters, and they're starting to touch on this in this episode, which I want to talk about. The training. So you have Black Lightning passing on what he's learned to Anissa here, and presumably later to Jennifer, once he gets wind of that. And I just kind of dig this kind of, and they've kind of teased this off and on throughout the season, that Anissa will say something, and Lynn will be all upset about it because, she's not a hero, and, she's just like, the mom. She has to be the boss. Yeah. And Jefferson just kind of laughs to himself all proud, like, oh, that's my girl. That's my baby girl.
Yeah. And he's a similar, I thought he played the father well.
Right.
I don't want her doing this. It's dangerous. And I do think it made sense when, her mom, his wife, comes and says, look, she's going to remember, this is both our daughters are stubborn.
Right.
So she's going to keep doing this.
Yeah.
And so we need to keep her safe.
Yeah. So it's just a question of whether you have a relationship with her or she cuts you out of her life.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So as a dad, how can you relate to that?
I totally can. I love the fact that, I never taught Chris, obviously, to go out and, put on leotards and fight crime, but I have taught him how to drive and how to do other things. And so you do have that. You got to give them a chance to make their own mistakes and everything. I just thought it was really well done.
Yeah, I do too. And I love the fact that Jefferson is kind of like a well-respected member of the community.
Yes.
Like he's the principal, and normally you would hate the principal at school, but the kids love him. They respect him.
Yeah.
And I really kind of dig that. I like seeing that Jefferson as this positive role model in and out of the costume.
Yeah, and I don't have it in front of me, but Friday Night Lights had the whole clear eyes, full hearts,
right,
can't lose, and I love his kind of mantra that he goes with the students. So I just like this a lot. I think that they are swinging for the fences and making it work. I do not know how it's doing in the ratings.
It's doing okay.
Okay.
All the CW shows are down, but it's hanging in there. It's actually doing better than Legends of Tomorrow. So
okay.
So hopefully we'll get a season 2 pickup. I'm hoping.
Okay. Good.
At least hopefully for at least another 13 episodes.
Yes.
Bare minimum, preferably more.
Yeah.
But, so this episode, we start off with Jefferson and Anissa training in Gamby's basement, and so we kind of get that throughout this episode. So, what were your thoughts about how Jeff was handling Anissa's training in this episode?
So, I am so glad they've given us a little bit of background of why this Taylor has so much electronics in his, the lightning cave.
Right.
Because I'm like, wow, this is not just a boxing ring where they're exchanging. I mean, they've got virtual reality. They're kind of doing all this stuff.
Right. Cutting edge tech. Yes.
Yeah, I think it was really well done, and I liked the fact that it isn't just you have to know when to use your powers and how to use them, and the whole we have to protect the innocent. I'm a big sucker for heroes that do not believe in having collateral damage. Superman never kills.
Right.
And that kind of thought process that he's doing. So yeah I'm very happy with it. Yeah. And it made for a really good kind of action sequence, the fast, the whole training montage.
Right. And I love the fact that they use Carl Douglas's Kung Fu fighting.
Yes.
I mean, that's one of my favorite songs from the '70s, and I just dig
Yes.
that. I just, I thought that was great that they used that. I just loved it.
I agree.
Because that song never makes me I never fail to smile when I listen to that song.
Yes, I agree.
So one of the scenes I liked in this one was where it was just after like Jefferson and Nyssa, they found that body in the forest. And they, like, Jefferson makes this call, anonymous call as Black Lightning. Well, not really anonymous, I guess. He makes a call as Black Lightning to Detective Henderson to pick it up. And then this guy in a suit comes out of nowhere with this weapon. And Jefferson goes to confront him, but apparently the guy in the suit, like, picks up this weapon and it detonates. And Nyssa saves her father.
Yes.
From basically becoming dust in this like big crater that opens up in the woods from the explosion. And so they get back home, and this is what I really like, that he was like geeking out that Anissa saved his life, which I thought was awesome.
Yeah, that was a great scene. You know, he's kind of all
proud papa.
You know, yeah, and he's proud and he's amped up and he's, you know, I'm just too jacked to, you know, I can't stop. And
there's all this excited energy.
Yeah. 100 miles an hour. And, you know, and his wife's just looking at him like, okay, you need to chill.
Yeah.
You know? But he was great.
Lynn doesn't get it. So, And it's just this kind of relationship now he's finding that he can share with his daughter, this side of himself. And so he's just kind of geeked about it. And probably Lynn's feeling a little left out in the cold, understandably, about it. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was interesting. Now, as you mentioned, we find out a lot about Peter Gamby this episode.
Yes.
And because Gamby's had a few shady scenes in recent episodes with Lady Eve, who has now ended up dead, and some other things. So we find out eventually Jefferson ends up confronting Gamby about this at Lynn's urging, as it turns out. So Gamby finally reveals that his name is Peter Esposito, and apparently he arrived in Freeland over 30 years ago as a government agent for the ASA. The government created a vaccine in an attempt to make the residents of Freeland more passive, but it instead created metahumans. So now we get an explanation. We don't have a particle accelerator here.
No.
But we're getting the Black Lightning's explanation about why metahumans are turning up. And I'm sure it has a lot to do with that research that Anissa was researching with her grandfather, being the reporter was digging into. So I'm sure that'll all be connected.
I think so.
So what did you think about Jefferson confronting Gamby about everything finally?
I'm really looking forward to seeing the payoff on that.
Yeah. James Remar, I thought, did a good job with that.
Yeah, I think so too. And his concern in trying to convince them not to go out there, and Jefferson, you've got to be careful. You got to be careful. And then you find out, we know why, but they don't.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I guess Gamby also mentioned that that vaccine was making kids sick, so he leaked the news to Jefferson's father, which that's the connection.
Yeah.
So I guess what else? Let's see. Gamby also reveals that if Jefferson puts on a suit and uses his powers, this guy Martin Proctor will find him and kill him.
And the actor who's playing Martin Proctor, he is one of those guys that always plays a jerk.
Okay.
So
this character will probably be a jerk.
Yes. He's been Greg Henry is his name.
Yeah.
He was he played a bad guy in Scandal. He was the evil, corrupt businessman who paid off politicians. He was the dad the boyfriend in Gilmore Girls that everyone hated.
Right.
That
guy.
Exactly. He's just been, in. I'm trying to see what else I've gone through. I know he just he always plays jerks. Yeah. And so this will be great for him to do that.
So he was what, Tristan's father on Gilmore Girls, if I remember correctly?
No, not. Oh shoot!
No, it's all right. Don't worry about it.
No. It's the Hutzberger. He's the guy who ended up, being her rich boyfriend.
Right.
So,
that was Tristan.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
No, Logan.
Oh,
Logan
I'm sorry.
Hutzberger.
I'm sorry. Logan Hutzberger. Yes. Yeah, that's who I'm thinking of. I'm sorry. I don't know why I said Tristan. Yeah, Logan. Thank you for correcting me. All right. The other big storyline in this, Jennifer. Major developments for Jennifer. I thought this was going to be probably season 2, but they're pushing this through pretty quickly here.
They are.
Maybe they weren't sure they would get a second season, so they're like, okay, we got to do this now. But so but yeah, Jennifer, she's hanging up some posters around school when her friend Keisha, the one that always kind of gets Jennifer in trouble, if you paid attention. She starts climbing up the scaffolding, and which is of course very precarious. And apparently, having never seen a superhero TV show, she goes up the scaffolding and, of course, begins to fall off the scaffolding.
Yeah, you're like, what are you thinking?
You knew that stuff was going to happen, right?
Yes.
And even Jennifer's just like, look, you're going to fall. You idiot.
Yes.
So credit to Jennifer for at least having the brains not to do it as well. So she begins to fall, but Jennifer in this fit of excitement begins to display her own electrical based powers, and she keeps Keisha from dying, essentially.
Yeah, she does.
So and in the process she ends up cooking her cell phone. It gets a little extra crispy. So she's obviously trying to figure out what happened. She gets her powers to activate a little bit in her bedroom. And then she later decides, okay, I guess I need to talk to my sister about this. Not realizing that her sister already has superpowers as well.
Yeah, I thought that was a wonderful moment where they're going, oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Jennifer shows her the phone, and she's just and then this is looking over her
that was really well done.
Yeah. But it has to probably now the question is, well, does she finally tell her sister that does Anissa tell Jennifer that she has powers as well?
I'm hoping so.
I would think so. I would think this would probably be the best opportunity to open up about that. And then Jennifer might be a little pissed, well, why didn't you tell me sooner? In typical CW angst.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Well, and sibling angst.
That's
right.
That too.
Yes.
That too. All right. So anything else about this episode before we move on?
No, I liked it a lot. I think they're really they're really showing what a different kind of show.
Yeah.
And I think overall people have liked it. There's always going to be people that go, oh, I don't like this, but I think they've been great.
Okay. So what's your rating for this one?
I give it 9 burnt cell phones.
Oh, you totally stole mine. But you really like this one. You really like this one.
I did a lot.
All right, let me see what I can come up with here. Okay. I'll give it 8.5 satellites that display radiation.
Nice.
Okay.
As many shows as we rate, it is kind of cool that we don't overlap that often.
Well, Well, we do, but that's okay. I mean,
No,
we don't
not
do it.
that many.
We don't do it all the time. No, you're right. Just every so often. But
yeah, every once in a while, yes.
But yeah.
And
well, it just shows that that we just have different things that catch our attention.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And by the way, his saying is, "Where's the future?" And the children yell, the students, "Right here." And whose life is this? Mine. And what are you going to do with it? Live it by any means necessary.
That's good words to live by.
Yes, it is.
All right. And I love that Jeff's a role model to both his kids in the classroom and in the school and also on the streets. I dig that.
Yeah, I agree. He is just, and he talked about that he's done more as principal than he ever did as Black Lightning. And I think if things had changed, he would have been happy never doing that again.
I think so too. But now I'm kind of wondering if he's going to change his tune about that now that Anissa and Jennifer have powers. And he kind of gets to share that with them.
Yeah, I think so.
We'll see. All right. At least until one of them gets hurt, probably.
Yeah.
Then he might have some regrets. All right. So we'll just kind of wrap this up right now. So if you'd like to reach us, if you want to wish Karen some kind thoughts, you can drop us a line at FandomZoneCast on the Twitter machine, or you can email us at fandomzonecast@gmail.com. Any kind thoughts that come in, I'll make sure Karen gets them, and if you're so inclined. Otherwise, you can post a comment on our Facebook page, the Fandom Zone Podcast, or you can reach us or drop us a line or a review on iTunes. We definitely appreciate that. Please rate and review us if you're so inclined. We would definitely appreciate that. And if you could like us or follow us on Twitter or Facebook, that would be awesome as well. You guys are the best. And if you've already done so, thank you so much. For those of you who haven't yet, please consider doing so. We definitely appreciate that. And Jesse, where can they find you on the interwebs?
Well, I am on Twitter at Jesse Jackson DFW. You can hear me talk to Charles about a certain British TV show, Doctor Who.
Yes.
On Next Stop Everywhere. You can hear Charles and I talk on our new podcast, Titan Talk, where we go full circle.
Yep.
And I'll just leave it at that. You should listen to the podcast so you'll know why we're saying that. And then I also still do my Set Lusting Bruce, which is a Bruce Springsteen / music podcast. And so you can, all of them are on iTunes or wherever. They're all Southgate Media podcasts. So please check us out and go like us on iTunes because it really does make a difference.
It does. And and also, help Rob Southgate, keep the lights on for our podcasts.
Yes.
So definitely support that.
And Charles, how about you?
As for me, I'm at Charles Skaggs on the Twitter machine, at Charles Skaggs on the Instagram, Google Plus for all you crazy kids in the Google Plus. Shout out to Karen. Facebook, of course, at Charles Skaggs. And my blog, Geeky Things.
Damn good coffee. And hot.
Damn good coffee and hot, where I talk about all the shows that we talk about here on the Fandom Zone podcast and more. All kinds of comic book and sci-fi goodness. And just posted some news that a certain John Constantine, Matt Ryan's character, will be joining the Legends of Tomorrow as a series regular, provided that the show gets picked up for season 4, which all indications are, yes, it's going to be coming back for season 4. So if you've enjoyed the John Constantine appearances on Legends of Tomorrow so far, including tonight's episode as we record this, you'll be happy to know that Matt Ryan is coming back. And we're getting more, so it's not quite Constantine season 2, but it's close.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think he was wonderful earlier in the this season, and so I think that's going to be great news for us.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to meet Matt Ryan at Wizard World Cleveland and got his autograph, and he's a great guy. Very friendly and outgoing with his fans. Definitely will take the time to talk to you. And so good things happen to good people.
And I will tell you that 2 or 3 years ago, David Anders was at Comic Palooza.
Yeah.
And he was a hoot. He was one of the first people that, you don't have to go pay a big bucks for a photo. Let's just hear.
Yeah.
Here's a little, just give me a little token and we'll do it from your phone. He talked about that, I'm just trying to make a little money. I'm not a bad guy. He was very funny.
That's good.
And just everything about it. So, yeah, good stuff.
I look forward to meeting him. So in honor of David L. Anders, I'll do this.
What is this bizarre segue that's happening right now? Can we maybe stay on point?
Thank you. Thank you, Blaine. So I had to do a little Blaine for that. So
very nice.
That's good to know because, hopefully I'll get to meet him at some point.
Good.
So hopefully he comes out Ohio way. That would be great.
Yes.
All right. If you want to catch me on my other podcasts, obviously you can catch me on Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast that Jesse talked about, or Titan Talk, the Titans podcast that Jesse talked about, where we talk all about DC Comics Titans and the upcoming Titans TV series for the DC digital service. We're kind of building up to that. We just recorded episode 4 last night with friend of the show, Phil Parrish. So hi, Phil. And looking forward to getting that out. So if you're a fan of the Phantom Zone, please consider checking out Titan Talk. I'm sure Jesse and I would definitely appreciate that.
We would.
And please tell your friends about us. We'd appreciate that as well. We want to spread the word, my people. So I think that'll about do it. Once again, our kind thoughts and prayers going out to Karen right now. And we hope you did you good this episode, Podcast Mom. And,
we love you, Karen.
We love you, Karen. And Jesse, anything you'd like to say before we head out?
As always, keep hope alive. Go rate and review us. And keep enjoying this golden age of superhero TV.
Exactly. Thank you again, my friend, for helping us out. And I hope you had fun. I had fun.
I did.
And we'll see you next time right here on the Phantom Zone podcast. Bye, everybody.